When have you seen me the most vulnerable? And what did it teach you about loving me?
Ooh.
Describe the first time you think I felt a spark between us.
Of the first second we met. I think it's funny when you find this type of love, all those cliches start to become true, and you're just like, I even hate that I'm saying these cliches, like love at first sight, but like I felt a spark. Or the question is, where did you feel the spark?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I felt the spark from you when you seen me, because I felt the same spark.
Mm-hmm.
It was just something in your eyes that I can feel, where it was like life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you are right about the times that we're living in, where it feels lifeless, it feels loveless.
Mm-hmm.
And then like looking at your eyes, I saw this spark in you of like life, of like resistance, of like fighting back for what you're owed, which is love. And it kind of like, that spark ignites me every day from that moment. You know what I mean? And that's why I believe our journey is like lifelong.
Yeah.
You know, I owe you this love. You know what I mean? And it's mutual. You know, it's not like but I felt that instant spark, like the moment we met, we actually locked eyes. Like we met, you know, on the internet per se.
Right.
But when I actually met you in person, it hit different.
Right.
And I felt that spark from you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I felt the same.
Yeah.
So the moment I saw you, I saw the spark. And that spark still lives on today. We have our shit, you know, but I never want that spark to die. Yeah. I always want to be a light to that spark.
Yeah. I will say, I think like once we actually did first meet, once you, because if you remember, my aunt and my cousin was basically dropping me off or walking me to meet you. And once you said, I'll give you my ID if you want, that's when I was like, it sounds crazy.
Yeah, so I was like, yo, if you want my ID, ma'am, like you can have it. Like, no worries. Like you can have my phone number, you can have my mama's number. And I'm a grown man.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that you know that anything that you need to know that your niece is safe.
Yeah.
That's above everything.
Yeah.
Is that she is safe and that y'all know that she's protected.
Yeah.
So that's why when I saw your aunt and cousin, it didn't scare me. It actually like, I appreciated that. And I want to do anything to make them, your whole family know that, no, like you're secure. My first thing is for you to feel safe.
Yeah. And I feel that. I still feel that. That's when that spark happened for sure.
Oh, shit. What do you feel I am hesitant to speak to you about and why? Oh, shit. Damn.
Oh, gosh. I think what's like coming up for me initially, I think we grew up so different, like in such different family dynamics, but also like different environments. I grew up in like Virginia, like smaller city, much more like reserved family dynamic, sheltered for the most part, like and I love my family to death, and I would never ask for another family. I think like that upbringing though has made me scared to live. And I think you were like the direct opposite of that, to where you grew up in this big ass city, LA, and you bleed like life like your heart, like you put everything into the things that you do. And as someone who moved out here, who is trying to sort of like shed the layers that I feel like I've sort of been molded in my upbringing. You know, I think I came out here to sort of be new and really figure out who I am at my core. I think like I'm still very reserved, and I think that can be sometimes kind of frustrating to you, where you're just like, bro, just do this, just do it. Like, just say what you want to do, and do it. You know, I came out here because music is my passion, and we connect through art. Like, that's how we first made our connection, was through words and art. And I think like sometimes you are hesitant to just like maybe want to shake me and just be like, bro, you're here, like just do it. And it takes me a lot longer to let go of the restraints that I have. There are a lot of things that I think we learn from each other, because I feel like we can sometimes be on the opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to certain like operational traits. But I appreciate that we can learn from each other in those aspects. Because if I was with someone who was like reserved like me, we would get nothing done. Nothing would be done. So
you moved on from them nonchalant men.
Oh my God. When have you seen me the most vulnerable? And what did it teach you about loving me?
Ooh. Probably when you made your leap to LA. Yeah. I saw how like brave that was. Yeah. You know, I come from a mother who crossed mountains. Yeah. You know, to a place she's never been to live. Yeah. You know, and she crossed it for love. Yeah. And that's so vulnerable. That's so brave. People shame that. Yeah. People will say, go back to your country or go back to home, you know? And home is wherever love is. Yeah. And for you, love was here. Yeah. And you made that choice. But with that choice, like, puts you in such a vulnerable place without your family, without shit. But you and your little dog, who's now my daughter, you know? So, you're so vulnerable, but to me that was so brave of you, and it like taught me how brave you actually are, because I think you shame yourself a lot. You kind of like put yourself down in a way where you think that you're not brave, you think that you don't do, but you do so much. You do things that, like, I don't even know if I would have the bravery to do, you know, leave everything. And so it taught me a lot about your heart, your will, your courage. And it kind of almost validated who I'm in love with, you know, that person. So it's almost like when I'm challenging you on your bravery, it's almost like I'm putting a mirror up to like, you know who you are. You know what I mean? So I think that's the most fun. And, you know, it's kind of tough navigating what role to play, because sometimes I'll see you vulnerable and all I want to do is hold you, right? I just want to be like, I want you to feel protected, but I also don't want to hold you back. Right. You know, I want you to feel free in a sense to like tap into this world that you just leaped into. Yeah. You know, so yeah, I would say that.
Thank you, babe.
Yeah. If this were to be our last conversation ever, what would you never want me to forget, and why?
I don't even want to think about our last conversation, but
You do be thinking about that.
I be thinking about it a lot, man. A lot more than I should. I think that I will want you because throughout your life, I think you've done so much for your family, for your community, for everybody that I think you've like come in contact with. You give your all to everybody that you meet. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons why I love you and why I'm proud to be your partner. I'm proud to be standing next to someone who does that, because that's such a rare thing to see in the world. And I would just want you to know that when it is time for you to rest, that you deserve rest as well. I think one of the things that I often fear within our relationships is that you're going to work yourself and give yourself to everybody until you are no more, And I mean, you've seen it and heard it from me many a times where I'm like, babe, please just rest. And so while I would hate for us to have obviously just one last conversation, I wouldn't want it to be about me, but I would just want you to know that you can rest when you're ready. Because I feel like there are times where you feel like you aren't afforded that, you can't. But I would want you to know that you can.
Baby.
Mm-hmm. What is your greatest hope for us?
Whew. That I think my hope for us is the hope for the world.
Yeah.
It's just being able to bring love back.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think love is some weak thing, but it's actually the toughest thing. It's the bravest thing. And my hope is already what we're doing, the commitment that we made to each other. And what I would want for the world is to commit to love.
Yeah.
And I don't know what shape that looks like. We started off as friends and then it bloomed to romantic partners.
Right.
And I love every shape that we've been through.
Yeah.
So I don't think I even hope with you anymore. It's more real than hope.
Yeah.
It's the action that we're doing, and I just hope that we continue to commit to that action, because it's something we believe in, no matter what shape this takes.
Yeah.
No matter what world we live in,
right,
the chaos, all the shit, I hope that we can commit to love, because I think that's what we are.
That is what we are.
If you enjoyed that conversation at the end, visit theskindeep.com/shop, where you'll find more of our products to create the space to explore the relationships that are most important to you.